Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is the afternoon of June 26, 2025, when I'm recording this. By the way, the reason I always put my date out there is so that people can know, okay, did he put this out before this event happened or after this event happened? Kind of helps people to assess things. And also because the date that I record things and the date that it gets published is not always the same thing. But either way, on to the topic for today. Trump's tariff war. Is it working? Um, Whether or not it's working depends on how you look at it. Trump and Lutnick and Bessent, they've laid out a whole slew of different goals, some of which are mutually exclusive. It's to raise revenue for the federal government. It's to prevent imports so that we create more manufacturing jobs at home. It's to get rid of the trade deficit, yada, yada, yada. A lot of different reasons. The one reason they have been completely consistent on since the beginning is that the primary goal of this is to bring down the trade deficits. And this is what's been coming out of all the talks is for when they're trying to make the trade deals, one of the reasons they're struggling to make them is the problem the Trump administration is trying to solve is trade deficits. Now, I have argued in prior videos that the trade deficits are in fact not a problem. They're in fact merely a result of the fact that the United States has such enormous purchasing power that, of course, we buy more stuff from other countries than they buy from us. Especially when you think about poorer countries, an El Salvador, Uganda, something like that. Countries that couldn't possibly come anywhere close to spending on parity with the United States. I mean, not even in any kind of weird theoretical way. It's just simply never going to happen. But again, he's been very consistent. Got to bring down those trade deficits because he sees those as ripoffs, that we are giving money to other countries, we are subsidizing them, and it is all coming at the deprivation of the United States. Again, I do not agree. I think that's completely wrong. I've discussed that in other videos. But for the sake of this video, let's ask the question, now that Trump has launched his trade policies, what's happening with the trade deficit? Is it getting bigger? Is it getting smaller? What's happening? Well, I have some numbers for you. According to the United States Government Bureau of Economic Analysis, we have the trade deficit for March, April, and May of 2025. And what I did was said, okay, looked at those numbers and said, well, what was it in 2024? Let's compare it to the year before. The whole idea of what Trump is saying is we've got to shrink that trade deficit. Again, I think he's wrong, but that's what he's saying. That's what MAGA believes. Got to shrink that trade deficit. So is it shrinking? Well, March of 2025, by the way, I'll point out that he put his first tariffs in place in February and has been changing tariff policy at least weekly, oftentimes daily, ever since late January, early February. So that's why I'm going with March. That's the first month by which there was significant Trump tariff policy in place that was in place for the entire month. March of 2025, we ran a $140 billion trade deficit. March of 2024, we ran a $75 billion trade deficit. March of 2023, we ran just under $75 billion of trade deficit. So Trump's March 2025 trade deficit was almost twice as big as what we'd had in either 23 or 24. Now, what about April? That was the month with Liberation Day and all the new tariffs and all that kind of stuff, most of which have been rolled back, by the way. That month, we ran an $86 billion trade deficit. Well, what did we run April of the year before? Roughly 75 billion, slightly over 75 billion. So we were up about 10 billion year over year, April 25 versus April 24. What about May? May of 25, $97 billion trade deficit. May of 24, again, right around 75 billion. I'm using standard rounding numbers, by the way. The American exports, by the way, in May of 25 dropped almost $10 billion from where they were the month before. So our exports are declining. So what we are seeing is that our trade gap is widening. It is widening significantly, and our exports are declining. There's a couple of reasons for this. One, retaliatory tariffs by other countries. They're just simply slapping tariffs on American-made goods. And unlike Trump, they're using precision. They're being very careful with what they place it on. They're sitting down, they're running through data, they're coming up. Trump just slaps 25%. He only does numbers that ends in fives and zeros, with the exception of the actual Liberation Day numbers. Everything else ends in either a 5 or a 0. Other countries are being more precise than that. But the bigger reason is that other countries, their general public, are, shall we say, not happy with the Americans right now, and so they're just simply not buying American goods. They are looking for alternative supplies. China, by the way, is taking great advantage of this and is beating down every door they can around the world to say, hey, we'll be your supplier instead of the Americans. And we're not crazy and we're not unreliable and we don't just slap on tariffs all willy-nilly like Trump does. So, hey, why don't you do a deal with us? And frankly, they're getting some traction. It's working. So the basic point though is over March, April, and May of 2024, the United States ran right about a $226 billion trade deficit. Over that same period, for March, April, and May 2025, hold on, let me add this up real quick. That would be 237 plus 86. It's going to be 310, 300, about 316 billion for the same period. So 2025 in a 90-day period or 3-month period, we run about a $225 billion trade deficit. In the same period, with Trump's tariffs in place, the trade deficit is up around $316 billion. That's about a $91 billion increase in the trade deficit. Again, American importers are terrified that more tariffs are coming. There's supply chain issues. So they're buying everything they possibly can from foreign suppliers while they can. Now, will these trends continue long term? No idea. I do not know. Trump's trade policy is so erratic, and there are so many issues. If you're a supply chain manager, God help you, God bless you. I do not envy the position you're in. But the simple fact of the matter is Trump's most consistently stated goal, which is to reduce the trade deficit, not only has so far that been a complete failure, the trade deficit has in fact gotten substantially bigger. It's about 40%, 40% bigger than it was in that same time period than last year. That's a big damn increase for 1 year. So in a shocking development, Trump has followed essentially a Twitter strategy, and it has, when I mean a Twitter strategy, something that sounded cool on Twitter, and it has blown up in his face. Kind of like when Democrats do the defund the police. It sounded cool on Twitter. You're very hip and cool and edgy, defund the police, all that stuff, ACAB. And once they started to implement it, murder skyrocketed and there were robberies everywhere. And, most of the victims were African American. And so what do you know? It turned out it was an unbelievably bad idea. Twitter strategies are generally really bad. If it sounds cool on Twitter, it's probably a bad idea in real life. But the point here is, if you're wondering, is Trump succeeding in his goal? No, he is failing. In fact, he is making the problem that he wants to solve considerably worse. So hope everyone's having a good day, and be back with a new video soon. Bye-bye.